This video is about the agenda. I mean, most of it. I will be covering One World Government, Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, the social credit system, medical passports, digital identity, one world currency, transhumanism in general, and everything that has to do with the agenda we have been facing for decades that is currently staring us right in the face. This will be a long video, but if you want to know exactly what is going on, I encourage you to stick with me. This is the most important video I have put together for you so far, and I hope you will pass it along. So pause the video right now, go get up and get some snacks, and let's get right into it. I want to be clear, I will be putting sources for as many things that I mention as possible in the description of this video down below. The agenda I'm discussing today is so vast that I am sure to miss bits and pieces, but my goal is to cover as many major plot points as I can and explain how they fit in with the broader agenda at work. All of these issues are important, but please keep in mind that everything mentioned here is merely a snapshot of a much larger picture, and as always, I encourage you to dig to the bottom of what you can for yourself. I have been mentioning many of the topics in this video for years in various videos and on different platforms, but with what I will refer to in the rest of this video as the 19 agenda, it is a fantastic time to talk to people about what is happening currently and how that, along with many other policies that have been pushed onto us, seem to tie together into a perfect tyrannical bow. We are seeing the concept of digital identity and smart cities spread with the rise of the medical passport to document jabs. This concept is being presented as necessary for the good of your health. This is the first step in introducing a universal digital identity system. It starts like this. Every human is at risk of catching and spreading the 19, so every human must partake in the jab. The easiest way to do this, of course, is to implement a digital medical passport. After all, without a worldwide digital identity system, these medical passports, which are right now only for jabs, are useless, and without them, how can we be sure someone is not a super spreader? The medical passport to digital identity pipeline was labeled a crackpot conspiracy theory by the corporate media throughout 2019 and 2020. But globalists have always been open about exactly what they're going to do, which is why many of us knew this was coming, and it was only a matter of time. In 2016, the United Nations announced its plan to give every human a digital identity at its ID 2020 summit. In 2018, the European Union announced the creation of jab passports that are compatible with electronic immunization information systems. The jab to medical passport is the digital identity. It is here. Of course, when you bring up the accusation that globalists are conspiring to do these things, they rebrand them as philanthropic crusades needed to save humanity from a perceived world-ending calamity like the 19 and climate change, formerly known as global warming. For example, the Rockefeller-founded Club of Rome openly admitted this exact strategy regarding climate change in their book, The First Global Revolution, and many other globalists have said similar things in the past and present day about why we must label climate change a global crisis. In searching for a common enemy against whom we can unite, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, would fit the bill. In their totality and their interactions, these phenomena do constitute a common threat which must be confronted by everyone together. So with all of this in mind, the question is, why would the elites want to digitize our identities? According to the United Nations, their plan for the future of humanity is to corral everyone into fully digitized, 5G-powered, sustainably developed, climate change-friendly smart cities. Once the human cattle have been forced to live in pods and eat bugs, the elites will use smart cities to micromanage our lives via AI automation, the Internet of Things, and the Internet of Bodies. Everything you own will be connected to not just the internet, but a worldwide system that regulates every aspect of your life. Your TV, trash can, fridge, oven, car, if you're still allowed to own one, will catalog your daily activities into the system. In turn, the system will control how you interact with society.
Hello everyone, meet Lucy, student in psychology, and me, her digital ID wallet issued by the government to offer a wide range of identity services. In fact, I'm a handy way of proving and protecting her identity both online and face-to-face. Let's have a closer look at what I can do. I can help governments to better communicate with citizens. Right now, I'm reminding Lucy of the appointment she needs to schedule for her mandatory vaccination.
Digital identity is the linchpin of this entire project. Your entire life will be centralized via this singular point of contact with the system. Anyone without a digital identity will be completely cut off from the system. If that seems far-fetched, keep in mind that this is already happening. People without medical passports tracking their jobs are prevented from buying groceries in countries like France. Your digital identity will be linked to every single pre-existing identity, both physical and virtual. Your driver's license, regular passport, email account, social media accounts, phone contracts, your bank accounts. This recipe for eternal slavery is being pitched to the masses in small increments and marketed as a series of life-changing revolutions for convenience and security. This is a situation that is developing daily, as it has developed for decades. As I was creating and editing this video, I had to pause to add in that Facebook is now rebranding itself as Meta, and the World Economic Forum has posted an article about this, which you can find in the description, about this rebranding, saying, Facebook recently changed its name to Meta to align the company with its ambitions to build the metaverse. The metaverse is not yet a reality, but it could be the next evolution of the internet. The idea is that extended reality, the combination of augmented, virtual, and mixed reality, will become a key medium for social and business engagement. The caption to the photo in this article is, "The difference between being offline and online will be much harder to delineate." Sound familiar? As you can see, we are swiftly moving towards the reality that I have described just now. The United Nations is directing the construction of so-called smart cities in alignment with their agenda for the 21st century, Agenda 21, also known as Agenda 2030. Almost every smart city resource published by governments and NGOs around the world features the terms Sustainable Development Goals, referring to the United Nations agenda. Agenda 21 is a long-term political strategy to reshape our entire planet. It was publicly announced by the UN in the early 1990s, but likely planned decades in advance. As usual, and mentioned previously, it is marketed to the public as a philanthropic project to save the world from climate change, poverty, hunger, disease, sound familiar, bigotry, racism, and so on. But it is nothing of the sort. It is a way for the globalist elite to establish totalitarian technocratic control, solidifying their rule and expanding their power not just over humanity, but over all life on Earth. A quick note before we move on. Over the past 2 years, we have seen a phrase, "Build Back Better," pop up all across the world in media. This phrase is being used in conjunction with what we will talk about as Sustainable Development Goals, the philanthropy projects that the elites love to push and talk about. Here's a compilation of politicians and world leaders discussing Build Back Better in various interviews and speeches worldwide.
Question to ask, how do we build back better?
To build back better or whatever.
We have a chance to reset the clock and build back better than before.
To build back better than before.
As we try to build back from this global...
Joe Biden calls it Build Back Better.
Build back better.
Building back better.
To do things differently. To build back better.
We're going to build it back better.
And build it back better. My plan to build back better.
Start taking all the problems that have been created in education and mental health and start to build back.
I have launched a booklet called Build Back Better.
It's about building this country back better.
He even calls Mr. Biden's campaign slogan, Build Back Better, a front for the conspiracy.
Build back better. Building back better our economy.
Build back better.
Attached in the description down below under sources is the UN's official list of Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Think of this as a hit list of things that globalist technocrats aim to micromanage. When they say things like no poverty and zero hunger, what they really mean is that their goal is totalitarian control over humanity's finances and food supplies. Total control is the only way to ensure that these plans, which are presented as noble causes, come together. To tie these points back in with the current situation we are facing, there is a short article from Bill Gates' Global Jab Alliance explaining why jabs are vital to accomplishing 14 out of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The United Nations works hand in hand with private corporations, international NGOs, and nation-state governments to implement Agenda 21. An internal UN report on smart cities states that they plan to establish public-private partnerships, PPPs, by which they mean overt technocracy, rule-backed, elite-backed experts. The project has widespread support throughout the world. One study found that by 1997, 70% of UK local authorities had committed to Agenda 21. In the East, the Chinese Communist Party recently announced that they are officially collaborating with the UN to implement Agenda 21 via their Belt and Road Initiative. Antonio Guterres said that the Belt and Road Initiative is highly compatible with the goals pursued by the UN and is conducive to solving various problems facing the world today and addressing challenges such as financing for development and climate change. The Belt and Road Initiative is an important opportunity for all countries in the world. The UN stands ready to work closely with the Chinese side in the process of jointly building the Belt and Road Initiative to jointly promote the cause of peace and development of mankind. Smart cities will likely utilize Chinese and Israeli technology, mostly stolen from America, and will most certainly feature Chinese community-style AI-powered surveillance and a world-spanning social credit system. While on the subject of communism, the abolition of private property has been a primary objective of globalists since the days of Karl Marx, at least. According to the World Economic Forum, an official UN partner organization, by 2030 you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. 2030 is the proposed end date of the so-called Great Reset, yet another Agenda 21 rebrand. They aim to transform every country into a nation of renters, whereby everything is owned and controlled by rootless technocrats. Note while looking at these article titles that Bloomberg is an official WEF partner corporation, thus directly linked to the United Nations. As another note, Chairman and CEO of BlackRock Larry Fink is also on the World Economic Forum's board. If you'd like a more in-depth look at BlackRock and its relation to jabs and finance, check out my previous video on BlackRock. A link will be in the description for that as well. The Agenda 19 lockdowns are not intended to stop the spread of a deadly virus, but to destroy the working and middle classes by transferring what little wealth they have left directly into the hands of the international oligarchy. American billionaires have gained over $1 trillion since the pandemic began, while American workers have lost an equal amount. Independent small businesses are being crushed and shut down by regulations worldwide, while mega corporations operate unimpeded. Even the mainstream media has been forced to admit that this is the biggest wealth transfer, by which they mean theft, in human history. While the lower classes are bled dry, plutocrats are busy buying up all of the farmland and houses that they can get their filthy hands on. Plebs owning land and property is unsustainable. Growing food and raising livestock is not eco-friendly. You will live in a rented smart city apartment where your carbon output can be tracked by AI. You will subsist on a diet of industrial maggot paste, lab-grown fake meat, and microplastics. You will own nothing and you will be happy. The World Economic Forum, founded by Henry Kissinger's protege Klaus Schwab.
For me, it's a very moving moment because actually I met Dr. Kissinger the first time exactly 50 years ago at Harvard.
Has published numerous articles and videos hinting at the forthcoming economic shift away from capitalism and towards a new socialistic system. The WEF calls for a fusion of private and public sectors, presumably to bring the world under the control of a centralized technocracy. No more private or public sectors, only the world sector. The direction that we are heading in today is eerily similar to the technocratic socialist world system envisioned by many leftists of the 19th and 20th centuries. See, for example, the non-fiction works of Fabian socialist H.G. Wells, The New World Order, or The Open Conspiracy, Blueprints for a World Revolution. George Orwell described this technocratic socialism as oligarchical collectivism, a state in which the means of production are owned by an oligarchy, the party, rather than the workers themselves, which describes every socialist state in history. The Fabians were instrumental in the New World Order project. As stated on their own website, yes, they have one, they pioneered the idea of a United Nations. This is not to say that modern elites are all ardent Fabians, but that the Fabian ideal, i.e. a socialist world technocracy, which is the idea of most 19th and 20th century leftists, has greatly influenced the globalist ideology of our era. Pictured here are Kissinger and Mao. Kissinger, alongside the Rockefellers and Rothschilds, played a significant role in opening China's economy to the West via international finance. At the beginning of the Agenda 19 PSYOP, globalist elites publicly announced their plans to establish an overt world government. This mind-blowing confession was casually slipped into Great Reset propaganda and various articles published at the United Nations website as if it was nothing. See, for example, a press release titled, "Agenda 19 shows us why united action is needed for a more robust international health architecture," signed by multiple world leaders including Macron, Merkel, and Boris Johnson. Although globalist elites have openly discussed world governance for decades, if not centuries, the mainstream media that they own and control slanders anybody who points this out as a conspiracy theory peddling lunatic. The United Nations is marketed as a powerless and benevolent observer. However, it was explicitly founded to act as the official world government. Who made it official? The people with enough wealth and power to destroy anybody who disagrees with them. The United Nations includes a multitude of sub-organizations designed to manage every aspect of human society. The World Health Organization, World Court, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, World Trade Organization, International Bureau of Education, International Organization for Migration, and so on. But the question is not if the UN will replace nation-state governments, but when. In many ways, it already has. Official UN propaganda has talked of one world and one humanity for decades. Alongside the United Nations, elites have also established a semi-decentralized shadow empire within the so-called private sector, which controls much of the world's finance, media, education, and corporations. This empire is connected behind the scenes via quasi-secret societies such as the Council on Foreign Relations, Bilderberg Group, and Trilateral Commission. The United Nations is essentially the public face of this covert shadow empire. Recent globalist rhetoric hints at a forthcoming synthesis between the shadow empire and the formalized world system under the United Nations. Think of those public-private partnerships I discussed earlier in the video. No world government would be complete without a world currency, and you can guarantee that globalists will attempt to force one through within the next few decades. This plan was hinted at in the Rothschild-owned Economist magazine, and the head of the Bank for International Settlements, the BIS, has claimed that he wants complete control over our money by banning cash in favor of central bank digital currencies.
In cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. The central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that.
How the elites plan to implement a digital one world currency is an unresolved question, but a 2017 Jerusalem Post article called Israel and the Unexpected New World Order suggests that a global currency collapse might be seen as a way to wipe the slate clean of nation-based currencies, especially the US dollar, and establish an international one, like Bitcoin. In 2020, Visa filed a blockchain patent for digitizing fiat currency. In the words of this article, the patent sets out a way for a central bank to take fiat money that is currently in circulation, digitize it, remove the converted physical currency from circulation, and then enable consumers and merchants to conduct transactions using a digital wallet stored on a chip of a smart card or a secure element of a user device. The patent applies to all central bank digital currencies, including pounds, yen, and euros, meaning that the physical currency of any central bank anywhere in the world can instantly be digitized. For some reason, the Visa patent featured very unsubtle Masonic symbology, a compass flanked by the two pillars of Solomon's temple. Architect, written below, is a reference to the Masonic god known as the Grand Architect of the Universe. A digital dollar was initially included in an Agenda 19 relief package under the CARES Act. The bill suggested that it could provide universal basic income, UBI, for Americans, which would be instrumental for creating a digital identity-based social credit system. If income is centrally controlled either by the state or some unaccountable international bureaucracy, they can completely eradicate political dissent. Disagree with the elite? Sorry, no more money for you. The precedent is already set. Private banking corporations have been deplatforming thought criminals for the last half-decade. See HSBC closing the bank account of Marine Le Pen, for example. The push to normalize a link between digital identity and the world banking system is already well underway. For example, Common Health, a digital jab passport project launched by the Rockefeller Foundation and World Economic Forum, has officially partnered with Samsung Pay, allowing users to host their Jab Pass within the Samsung app. Apparently, this does nothing besides display QR codes that link the user's Jab Passes. A JPEG saved in your camera roll would achieve the same results. However, this is merely the thin end of the wedge. You can expect a range of wonderfully convenient features soon enough. The Doconomy credit card, launched in 2020, provides a glimpse of how the forthcoming social credit system might function. It tracks the environmental impact of everything you buy, including food, and cuts you off if you use up all of your carbon credits. A Finnish startup company produced the card on the behalf of the United Nations in collaboration with MasterCard. You will be pleased to know that the Doconomy team prioritizes gender and racial equality. 50% of their board is female, and a woman of color serves as their CEO. The most important aspect of the Great Reset is the Fourth Industrial Revolution, or the Transhumanist Revolution, the merging of man with machine.
At the end, what the Fourth Industrial Revolution will lead to is a fusion of our physical, our digital, and our biological identities.
That was Klaus Schwab, the German engineer and economist best known as the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, who I've already mentioned previously in this video. If you think that transhumanism means turning people into badass cyborgs capable of superhuman feats of strength and intelligence, then you're in for a nasty surprise. The transhumanist revolution has been inoffensively branded as the Internet of Bodies, which is based on the Internet of Things, a physical network of interconnected devices that collect and transfer data to one another, independently of human intervention. I mentioned both of these when we talked about smart cities earlier in this video. Practical applications of the Internet of Things include smart home devices, basically smart cities but for your house, such as the Amazon Echo or Google Home. AI-driven medical care, supply chain management, and agricultural and manufacturing processes. See the application section of the Internet of Things wiki page for more info. It will be linked in the description down below. The Internet of Things was conceptualized in the 80s and 90s at elite colleges like MIT and UC Berkeley, both of which have links to the CIA. Its popularity skyrocketed after the renowned scientist Bill Joy delivered a lecture on device-to-device communication at the World Economic Forum in 1999. A year later, Joy penned the infamous "Why the Future Doesn't Need Us" article, in which he warned that our most powerful 21st century technologies, robotics, and genetic engineering, and nanotech, are threatening to make humans an endangered species. The Internet of Bodies will be created by linking human beings directly into the Internet of Things via devices that can be implanted, swallowed, or worn. The Internet of Bodies is a network of interconnected devices that collects data on human beings, logging physical activities, health, etc., and modifies their biological functions. Once again, the thin wedge consists of near-useless products like smartwatches and completely useless products like smart hairbrushes and toothbrushes. Smart contact lenses are on the cards too, so you can beam YouTube advertisements directly into your own eyeballs.
On the fall of 2015, 3 Silicon Valley veterans, with 2 of them having bad eyesight, formed a secretive startup under the cover name TechDis while they worked in stealth mode, not knowing if what they were doing would even be feasible. And as the years went by, they recruited talent from Apple, Amazon, HP, Google, and more to invent something that had never been built before, using technology that was said to have to be called in from the future. Fast forward to January 2020, and the TechDis team came out of stealth mode under their new name Mojo, a startup with over $100 million in funding that promises to elevate humanity's vision with the world's first augmented reality contact lenses as a new player in the trillion-dollar cyborg revolution.
As with all globalist plans, the transhumanist revolution is marketed as a benevolent project. The World Economic Forum has claimed that the Internet of Bodies could prove crucial in fighting the 19, and technologies like smart pacemakers and digital pills have been subtly promoted by the mainstream media and think tanks for several years. Physically implantable COOF jab microchips, regarded as an insane conspiracy theory in 2020, were publicly announced as a life-saving scientific revolution in 2021. It should go without saying that globalist elites do not have the slightest concern for the health of humanity. Their only concern is power. If anything, they are explicitly anti-health. Ruling over a healthy, strong, intelligent, competent population is dangerous business for a despised ruling class. They could never be overthrown by a legion of drugged up, obese, mentally ill, lazy, weak, timid, obedient fools. it's for your health. One of the primary purposes of the Internet of Bodies is data collection, but the question is, what are they planning to do with all of that data? A leaked Google presentation titled The Selfish Ledger in 2018 dropped some pretty big hints.
When we use contemporary technology, a trail of information is created in the form of data. When analysed, it describes our actions, decisions, preferences, movement, and relationships. This codified version of who we are becomes ever more complex, developing, changing, and deforming based on our actions. In this regard, this ledger of our data may be considered a Lamarckian epigenome, a constantly evolving representation of who we are. User-centered design principles have dominated the world of computing for many decades, but what if we looked at things a little differently? What if the ledger could be given a volition or purpose, rather than simply acting as an historical reference? What if we focused on creating a richer ledger by introducing more sources of information? Initially, the notion of a goal-oriented ledger may be user-driven. As an organization, Google would be responsible for offering suitable targets for a user's ledger. Whilst the notion of a global good is problematic, topics would likely focus on health or environmental impact to reflect Google's values as an organization. Once the user selects a volition for their ledger, every interaction may be compared to a series of parallel options. If one of these options allows the ledger to move closer to its goal, it will be offered up to the user. Over time, by selecting these options, the user's behavior may be modified and the ledger moves closer to its target.
In this allegedly hypothetical scenario, Google states that an individual's ledger is all of the data that big tech has collected on them throughout their lives. It is the digital equivalent of a person's genetic code, containing records of their entire personality, their unfiltered preferences, thoughts, feelings, questions, decisions, and so on. Like DNA, ledgers are multi-generational, passed from parent to child. Google states that this mass historical user data has made it possible to make increasingly accurate predictions about decisions and future behaviors. Just as geneticists sequenced our DNA, Google claims that a massive multi-generational analysis of ledger data would allow them to engage in behavioral sequencing. Once the behavior of humanity has been digitally sequenced into a quantifiable form, Google can then target parts of the sequence and modify them in order to achieve a desired result, just like gene editing. The end goal is species-scale behavioral engineering. This brings us to our next question. How will this behavioral engineering work in practice? The Selfish Ledger video gives us the example of a mobile pop-up that gently nudges individuals towards more healthy behaviors. But it's unlikely that a mobile pop-up spam will indoctrinate the entire human race. Scientists recently suggested that xenophobes should be forcibly drugged until they start to love refugees, and it seems that this sort of biological hacking will be the control mechanism of choice for elites in the future. Medicating bigots into loving refugees is reminiscent of Aldous Huxley's comments on transforming the world into a painless concentration camp in which pharmacological methods make people love their servitude. Given that 20% of Americans are on antidepressants or similar medication, it would be fair to conclude that many people already live in a painless concentration camp, or they're certainly trying. As a side note, Aldous's brother Julian coined the term transhumanism in his 1950 book New Bottles for New Wine. He was the first director of the United Nations UNESCO and a Fabian socialist. Something along the lines of Elon Musk's Neuralink project, which is credited with kickstarting the transhumanist revolution, is the most obvious vector for behavioral engineering. Neuralink is officially defined as an implantable brain-machine interface for human symbiosis with artificial intelligence. In layman's terms, that means global corporations will shove microchips into your brain and hook you into a supercomputer. The Neuralink chip is the size of a large coin. It replaces a fragment of your skull and plugs directly into your neuron neurons using tiny wires. The surgery is so complex that it has to be fully automated using advanced robots. However, Elon has been kind enough to assure us that Neuralink will be affordable to the masses, costing a few $1,000s at most, the same price as LASIK eye surgery. In a 14-minute presentation on Neuralink technology, Musk claimed that its purpose is to solve important spine and brain problems. Apparently, its first clinical trials will be on people who suffer from paraplegia and tetraplegia. This cheap, emotionally manipulative propaganda utilizes the Antifa and Black Lives Matter branding strategy. Anybody who opposes these violent Marxist terrorist organizations is a fascist who hates black people. Likewise, only a cripple-hating bigot would oppose the Neuralink agenda. This is the standard formula of leftist politics, commonly known as sociopathy. If you don't comply with my unreasonable demands, then I'll tell everyone that you're an evil person and try to ruin your life. The most significant aspect of Neuralink is that, unlike most other transhumanist technologies, it doesn't merely read and report on body data, but can actively write data to the brain. Since Neuralink can control or overwrite people's biological functions, it is safe to assume that this technology can also control thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, or at least perhaps has the potential to. Towards the end of his 14-minute presentation, Musk claims that Neuralink technology could even be used to upload and store your memories as a backup and potentially download them into a new body or a robot body. Elites won't need pharmacological methods to make the masses love their servitude if they can convince the plebs to microchip their own brains. Don't underestimate how many people would happily sell their souls to global corporations just to access psychic text messaging or virtual reality porn. Naturally, the technocrats won't transition straight from brain chips to eternal slavery. First, you'll get the standard brain chip with text messaging and VR porn. Then, maybe a few upgrades. Perhaps they'll release a Never Feel Sad plugin, the thin end of the wedge for transhumanist behavioral modification. Global corporations will steadily introduce minor regulations and patch updates until eventually, one day, perhaps you find that you are biologically incapable of disagreeing with the globalist agenda. Maybe you will be incapable of recognizing that the agenda even exists at all. Everything is fine. You own nothing and you're happy. You love living in the pod and eating bugs. Society has always been this way, the painless concentration camp. These predictions are all purely speculative, of course. Neuralink is working hand in hand with the FDA to make sure that everything is above board. This technology won't be used for any nefarious deeds, obviously. Disregarding theories on behavioral engineering, technology like Neuralink perfectly aligns with the wider globalist agenda. Brain microchips that telekinetically link people to internet systems have limitless potential within a smart city, digital identity, or a digital currency framework. According to Scott Amix, a United Nations partner, smart city, salesman, and expert on the fourth industrial revolution, Neuralink has the potential to transform the world. The final piece of the transhumanist puzzle is provided by Bill Gates. In early 2020, Microsoft filed patent number WO/2020/060606. That's right, it's 666, for a cryptocurrency system using body activity data. It's exactly what it sounds like. Microsoft is trying to patent the concept of turning human beings into living, breathing crypto mining machines. The abstract is crystal clear. Human body activity associated with the task provided to a user may be used in a mining process of a cryptocurrency system. Note that the patent only states that the hypothetical crypto mining system will feature a user that is somehow communicatively coupled to the server. It does not specify how the user is communicatively attached to the server. This could be achieved via implant, smartwatch, digital pill, or perhaps maybe maybe some unknown technique. Gates seems to be interested in using biocompatible near-infrared quantum dots to brand vaccinated people like cattle, so I'm sure he has something up his sleeve. Is the elite's plan for humanity transforming us into a herd of crypto mining cattle? Blockchain does seem to be an integral aspect of the transhumanist project and of the fourth industrial revolution, according to this World Economic Forum video.
Blockchain technology is going to redistribute power in society, and I think companies that are not paying attention to that redistribution will be left on the cutting room floor.
Blockchain technology is going to redistribute power in society and will serve as the operating system for the new economy. This video also claims that they are trying to identify gaps in governance that are impeding the adoption of the technology, and that their focus is on its potential for financial inclusion. In this video, they said they plan to achieve this via private-public partnership models that facilitate the use of the technology for social benefit. Keep in mind that when they say redistribute power in society and financial inclusion, what they actually mean is stripping wealth from the predominantly white middle class and giving it to the third world or immigrants. Globalists are not going to disempower themselves. It's also important to note that they don't want to forcibly redistribute wealth to the third world because they are, quote, good people, but because they want to shove a microchip in the brain of every African tribesman. You will not be a superhuman cyborg. You will be a gelatinous slave who gets to be fake happy with chemicals cybernetically administered directly into your neurons while you psychically stream VR porn into your eyelids. This is pretty similar to everyday life for a lot of people, so don't be surprised by how many willingly sign up for this madness. This is the longest video I've done on my channel that isn't a live stream, so here's the too long didn't watch for you. The elites have openly stated that they are creating a one world government. The 19 agenda and climate change are overblown scams to scare the masses into accepting this world government. The 19 is not a world-destroying plague, and climate change will not end the world. Elites aim to corral humanity into fully digitized 5G-powered smart cities, which may be constructed with the Chinese and Israeli technology via the Belt and Road Initiative. Everything you own, including your physical property, internet accounts, various forms of identification, and bank accounts, will be centralized via one singular digital identity and linked into a one world spanning digital control grid. This system will monitor and regulate your behavior like a China-style social credit system. Those who have too low of a social credit score, meaning they are racist, sexist, homophobic, not jabbed, and not eco-friendly, etc., will be shut out of basic services. The elites are currently in the process of abolishing private property and transitioning towards a communistic/socialistic economic system with universal basic income and communal ownership, whereby the plebs own nothing and are happy about it, are renting everything from the state and world government and oligarchs. The elites plan to implement a one world digital/blockchain currency and abolish nation-based currencies, including the US dollar. This might be done incrementally as Visa and the US government are working together to digitize existing physical currencies or via an artificially engineered financial collapse. The World Economic Forum claims that the blockchain will serve as the operating system for the new economy. Universal basic income will enable the elites to completely eradicate political dissent by deplatforming people from the one world currency and global financial system, which will be integrated with the digital identity and social system. The plebs will be forced to eat fake lab-grown food because real food is not environmentally sustainable. Google tacitly admitted via the selfish ledger doctrine that the end goal of their massive data harvesting project is to build a genetic code of human behavior, behavioral sequencing, which they can then hack for species-scale behavioral engineering. Technology related to Elon Musk's Neuralink and those like it might be used to control thoughts and behaviors or to biologically meld individuals' minds with the behemoth internet control grid. Bill Gates has patented technology to harvest living humans' activities for cryptocurrency, and transhumanism is here. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Now, this video is sure to be demonetized by YouTube for obvious reasons. If you liked this video and want to help support the channel, there are a few things and ways that you can do so. You can head on over to my t-shirt shop and let the elites know that you are not going to live in a pod or eat bugs. You can also visit my website to donate to me directly, or you can donate to help the channel via my Ko-fi link in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching. I encourage you all to look into these matters for yourself. Check out all of the source links in the description of this video. If there is anything that you feel that I missed, please sound off in the comments of this video. I would love to hear your thoughts on all of this, and I hope this has been very informative for you. This has been Mac, and I'll see you next time.